As the NBA Finals shifts to Indianapolis, Game 3 of the NBA Finals tomorrow night at 7:30. Along with Josh Callaway, I am Colby Daniels. What a scene it was at the Paycom Center in the closing moments and obviously the entire postgame following the Thunder's 123-107 Game 2 win. And everybody really just soaking in an NBA Finals win, evening the series, which was a must after giving up home court advantage in game number 1. And now the series is going to shift. And the Thunder are going to face a monumental test, Josh. Maybe a test that is greater than the Memphis Grizzlies, a test that is greater than the Denver Nuggets, a test that is greater than the Minnesota Timberwolves, or even the Indiana Pacers. They're going to face a Game 3. Playing well in a Game 3. Can they do it? That's the monumental test that the Oklahoma City Thunder face going into tomorrow night and trying to take home court advantage back. I found a stat today, Josh, that in series tied 1-1 in the NBA Finals, the Game 3 winner goes on to claim the championship 80% of the time.
Wow.
So how about that? I mean, you know, we'll probably do this as the series goes on, and some of these may apply to this series, some of them might not, but winning Game 3 tied 1-1 and going on to claim the championship at 80% is a massive statistic to just kind of put into perspective how monumental Game 3 is, and especially for the Thunder having lost home court advantage.
Yeah, stating the obvious, but Game 3 is huge. You really feel like whoever gets this one coming up on Wednesday night is firmly in the driver's seat, kind of moving through the rest of the way. Not that it's over one way or another by any means, but you're really liking whoever gets this one's done, kind of where they sit as the series kind of moves forward. I've been kind of surprised, the last couple of days. I do it a lot with my day-to-day job with OU Sports of kind of, after games, really kind of absorbing what's the national conversation, because we're so close to it. We're at these games. What's kind of the national perception of this thing? I've been kind of surprised the last couple of days how nationally there seems to be this belief that just like the Thunder, it's over. Like they're back on track. They're going to just roll the series the way, kind of everyone thought they would going in. And I get it. But at the same time, Indiana still has home court. I still think the Pacers are really good. And they're going to be at home. It just feels like, not that I don't like where the Thunder sit, because I do, but they got the work cut out for them. And obviously they haven't been bad on the road in the playoffs, but they have not been anywhere near what they've been at home. So they have to find a way to, to kind of replicate what they did in the first two games, going to Indianapolis, which is easier said than done. And we're going to learn a lot about this team again. Every test, every step of the way, we're going to see another big one on Wednesday night. That's for sure.
I mean, national media is always an overreaction to the moment, right? National media is always prisoner of the moment. What's the biggest, on the grand scale, what is the greatest thing we could say following any one win? And it was like, after Game 1, it's like the Thunder are in trouble, right? This is what the Pacers have done this entire postseason. They're the team of destiny.
Right.
And then the Thunder bounce back in the face of adversity, and it's like, okay, all's right in the world. The Thunder are going to roll this team. The answer, I think, generally is somewhere in the middle. It wasn't the world is ending after Game 1, and it certainly isn't that it's going to be an easy path for the Thunder, although I still believe, like I did after Game 1, that the Thunder are going to win this series. The work still has to be done, and Indiana, if they've shown us anything throughout not only this playoff run, but these two games in the finals, is that they aren't going to lay down for anybody. They will fight to the end, and they have that belief, especially in the fourth quarter, that they're going to be able to pull victory from the jaws of defeat. So, you can't take anything for granted if you're the Thunder. I think that is something that they've done a good job of. It feels like they've needed a little reminding at least once every series to kind of get back on track, and maybe get the Game 1 collapse was what they needed for this series. If they needed any more motivation, Josh, I would say just what they've done in Game 3s overall, which was a focal point of Media Day today. That should be motivation enough to have them ready to go tomorrow night. Game 3 at Memphis in the first round, they're getting beat by 29 points. I think that was the largest lead at any point. It was 29 points. I want to say it was a 28-point halftime lead. Ja Morant gets hurt. They come back and have this monumental win. But to say that they played good basketball against a very inferior team is that's not true. They did not play good basketball. They give them all the credit in the world for coming back, but that was a miserable performance early. And I still think they probably win it in 5 if Ja doesn't get hurt, but the other team's best player went out, and that sort of aided the comeback. The second round, they actually played a decent game. They led, I think, after both the first quarter and halftime against Denver in Game 3. And then they're leading with 30 seconds to go. They give up a 3 to Aaron Gordon to send it to overtime. And then in the overtime is really where you got the collapse in the second round. The Nuggets outscored the Thunder 11-2 in overtime, and it was not a close game at the finish. And then game 3, you have the just absolute beatdown by Minnesota that was never competitive from any point. And they responded to that in a big way. But obviously the response in game 3 at Indianapolis, you have to show up in a big way, and you can't just go through the motions like they have multiple times in game 3s throughout this playoff run.
Yeah, these series can totally flip whenever you flip the city. I mean, we've seen that. I mean, I think of just this last series against Minnesota, the 3 games in Oklahoma City, I mean, really not all that close. I mean, the Thunder kind of whipped up on Minnesota in all 3 games at the Paycom Center, but the 2 in Minneapolis, obviously Timberwolves blew out game 3 like you just talked about, and then game 4, Thunder won, but it was a battle. It was a grind right to the very end. So the Thunder have not rolled anyone at any point, even Memphis, on the road in the playoffs. So these games are going to both be tough. I mean, the Thunder could definitely win them both, but I think they're both going to be very competitive games that will probably decide in the fourth quarter. So to kind of the notion that the Thunder are just like completely the driver's seat when Indiana still has home court, I think that's a little much. Again, I'm with you. I like where the Thunder stand. I think they're still going to win this series, but they got work to do. Like I'm not willing to just say all is right in the world after game 2, just yet at least.
I thought game 2 would be a blowout. I know you thought game 2 would be a blowout in favor of the Thunder. I think games 3 and 4 are very gettable for the Thunder. I like them to win at least one, if not both of those games, but I also expect both games at Indiana to be very competitive, to say the least. Mark Dagnalt on this series shifting to the road and what to expect from the Pacers now playing on their home floor.
Watching them, especially in game 5 in New York, and then game 6, in game 6, they made a conscious effort when they came home off a loss to really ramp up the physicality, pressure. And so that's one thing we have to be ready for coming in here, is understanding they're going to play with a lot of energy. They play very well here. They play very comfortable here. And we've got to level up to that if we want to give ourselves a chance to compete.
I mean, I imagine it's human nature to, on the road, you're not gonna be in the same space that you are at home. Plus, when you've won, it's always kind of like who has the most urgency going into any matchup. And when you've won the way that they did in game 2, maybe the urgency isn't there, but there's a championship at stake, and they can't afford that type of mind thinking. Here's J-Dub on, and he recognizes that they have not played well in game 3s.
Yeah. I mean, it's no secret, like, our game 3s haven't been the best, so. But it's also, to your point, it's an opportunity. And Mark is always talking about how if it's the finals, if it's the 3rd week in January on a random Tuesday and we're not even on TV, like, how can you get better through the experiences that we play? And that's kind of how we look at it. We're just trying to get better every single game. Obviously, we're trying to win as well, but every single time you try and go out there and you look back at your film and you're like, we got better tonight or we got worse, and we're always trying to get better.
And just to kind of reference that quote a little bit, he was, or give you some context on that quote, and this applies to the Shea sound I'm about to play, but both of them were kind of asked along the lines of like being able to check off the boxes of things that you weren't doing well and that like the hurdles you've overcome, and now it kind of seems like game 3 is in the postseason has become a hurdle.
For sure, you would hope, and I feel pretty confident. I mean, Memphis and Minnesota, obviously, both cases, they're up 2-0 pretty comfortably in both cases. So I think, especially against Minnesota, probably Memphis too, but especially against Minnesota, I think they were a little guilty of kind of, I don't know, just not, we talked about at the time, just not matching Minnesota's urgency and how badly, they were playing for their season, essentially. 1-1 going to Denver. It wasn't all bad, like we talked about earlier. I mean, they got it to overtime. It wasn't like a complete no-show or anything. They just weren't real sharp. That was probably SGA's worst game of the playoffs. So I would hope and I would assume that will not be a factor. I honestly think in a weird, twisted way, the fact that it's 1-1 helps the Thunder in game 3. Now, you'd rather be up 2-0, so I hope that makes sense what I'm saying. But it's like, the mindset is a little bit better for Oklahoma City, I think, because they know, like, we have to get home court back. And if we go down 2-1, they came back against Denver, but that's not something you want to make a habit of by any means. So I would think mentally they should be in a pretty good spot going into tomorrow night, I would think, at least.
SGA on the game 3 approach as well.
We just have to keep finding ways to get better. as a group. If we continue to do that, we'll be just fine. But if we've struggled in an area, that's an area we can get better at, and we have to attack that opportunity. And I think Game 3 is a perfect example of that.
So there you go. They obviously have led with defense in these first two games. I mean, the defense overall, I think you would say, minus the fourth quarter run that Indy went on in Game 1, I mean, the defense has done what anybody would have asked of this Oklahoma City defense going into the NBA Finals. I think the approach has been the right approach. There's a lot of good things you can say about the overall defensive performance. Tyrese Halliburton, I mean, you hold him to 14 points in Game 1. I know he hits the game winner, but it was a pretty pedestrian performance from him up to the point that he won the game. Game 2, he has 5 points going into the fourth quarter. It was kind of a blowout, so like you can give him a lot of credit for scoring 12 points in the fourth and being like Mr. Clutch or whatever people want to call him. But some of that is contextual because the Thunder had such a big lead. But they've done a really good job on not only Halliburton but Pascal Siakam. I know there were 8 players, I believe, in double figures in Game 2, but no one guy really like picked them apart, right? The Thunder made the team as a whole beat you, and I think that's the right recipe over the course of this series. Mark Dagnall, I thought, had a really good answer to a question. He was specifically asked about defending Pascal Siakam, but he kind of converted his answer more into a team defense kind of answer.
You really can't like key on an individual player or an individual thing. You really have to defend them conceptually because that's how they're existing on offense. And just trusting that if you do that, it'll lower the overall effectiveness of the individual players. But that's easier said than done. I mean, they're just so good at imposing their will on that end of the floor that you really can't take that for granted. And as we come here especially, we really have to be on it if we want to give ourselves a chance to continue to do that.
And similar to Minnesota's Game 3 and 4, really. I mean, those guys are going to shoot the ball better and just overall play better, be more comfortable, I think, in their game when they're on their home floor as opposed to being on the road, which the role players have played pretty well so far.
Yeah, right, for sure. I really don't have much to complain about with what the Thunder have done defensively in the first 2 games. Like you said, I mean, Tyrese Halliburton is just not comfortable. He cannot get any room. And I think, kind of going back even to like the regular season matches, he only played the Pacers twice, but, Tyrese Halliburton is, he's having a rough time against the Thunder, which a lot of guys do. Anthony Edwards had his struggles at time against the Thunder as well. I mean, the Thunder are a really good defensive team. So, Pascal Siakam, I think, said after the game, Game 2, just basically acknowledging, like, the Thunder are really physical defensively. We're having a hard time just getting anywhere. Like, we just got to be stronger with the ball. Like, credit to him, he didn't make, like, the fouling excuse we've heard a lot about, throughout this postseason. It was more like they're just kind of beating us up, and, like, we have to do better. And that's really where it comes down to. I think that would scare you if you're an Indiana fan. It's just, like, do we just have the personnel to do this? Because the first 2 games, the Thunder defensively have really done a nice job. And if Tyrese Halliburton's not going to be able to break 20, and Pascal Siakam's going to go 3 for 11, Indiana's just going to have a hard time beating the Thunder. I mean, it's really that simple.
I think that's actually a scarier answer for Thunder fans than Pacers fans, because the scary answer for the home team, if you're a Pacers fan, would be blaming the refs, right? Because that's not actually addressing the real problem, right? That's making an excuse for why you got beat up, and if you're making excuses, that's already in some ways defeat, right? You've experienced defeat in some ways if you're already making excuses. Like identifying what the actual problem is and not trying to make the officials whistle the scapegoat, I think is the first step to trying to actually fix it. So like if I'm a Pacers fan, I think I probably walk away from that feeling better than if they had been Minnesota or any of these other teams like complaining about they're just getting a good whistle and that's why they're beating us. Maybe there have been games that helps the process, but the reality is they're just beating people up. And if you're not ready for that type of physical matchup, it's going to continue to happen.
Yeah.
Let's hear from SGA on, I guess, just the preparation as the series evolves from game to game.
A series is so tricky. Like it definitely is like it's a feel out, but it also can be like there's also so many adjustments made to where like it's almost like hard to like predict and try to determine what they're gonna do with you. You kind of just have to be ready for everything, and just try to be as sharp as you can. That's how I kind of see it.
So yeah, just be prepared, be ready for everything they're going to throw your way, and then roll with the punches. He is rolled with things, that's for sure. I mean, I think you mentioned the stat in the postgame the other night: 72 points in his first 2 NBA Finals games, which is the greatest 2-game start of anybody's NBA Finals career. I mean, and I thought, I thought he was good in Game 1. The shooting percentage wasn't great, and part of that was because nobody else was shooting the ball well, and at times I think he just had to try to be aggressive to get some offense going. But I thought he had the game on a string in Game 2. I thought he had great command of the game, knowing when to give the ball up, knowing when to call his number, knowing when to take advantage of his matchup, and he went into, I mean, killer mode, right? Like there was a Jordan Kobe-esque, I think, like, killer instinct from him, I thought, in Game 2, especially in different moments, to just, I mean, annihilate the opponent. And there were definitely some like wow type of moments for sure.
No, he was completely in control in Game 2, getting guys involved. I mean, just making the right play a lot, really all night. I mean, I think he had 8 assists. Obviously he scores over 30 points again. I mean, he's, Rick Carlisle had that great quote where, you could pencil him for 30 points right now for Game 3. Like, he's just a machine. He's been borderline unstoppable, really, throughout most of these playoffs, especially the last couple of rounds. The back end of Denver series till now, really. He's just been so good and just making the right play over and over and over. And, it's funny, that quote, we just heard him kind of talking about, the adjusting back and forth and kind of trying to be ready for anything. Like, it's almost like you have to find that balance of, like, not, like, adjusting to their adjustment before, like, getting almost too much in your own head of how they're going to counter this. And, like, almost you kind of have to be able to just kind of be ready for anything, like you said,
right,
and figure it out throughout the course of a game, which I think Thunder have gotten really, really good at over the course of, this postseason.
All right, before we get final thoughts and I guess sort of lay out what we're looking at for game number 3, I did want to play this sound to Jalen Williams, who was asked something along the lines of, like, do you feel any extra pressure or motivation now that you're in a 1-1 series in the NBA Finals, same position that the Thunder were in 2012 when they had the young trio of Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden?
To go from watching them reach that point and then to end up being on the team that's in the same position as them, it's just like, it's more of like a blessing and just like a dream come true. It's like, I just played Russell Westbrook in the playoffs, and obviously he's a cornerstone of this, like, organization. So it's like I just try and take those little things that come with it and just be really happy and thankful for it. It doesn't really add any pressure or any kind of, like, motivation. It's just really cool that I get to be in this position.
And that's the answer you would expect, right? I mean, I think the Thunder have always, when anybody asks them about comparing themselves to anybody in history or even teams within the league, like, they're really good at just worrying about themselves, what they can control, getting better at the things they don't do well, capitalizing on the opportunities they have, and not worrying about anybody else. But at least he did recognize, like, it's a very cool thing that, the Thunder are this young team now, kind of in the same situation, although it's flipped, right? Because the 2012 Thunder won Game 1, lost Game 2, and they went on to lose 4 straight. This team maybe flips that around, but they lost Game 1 as the heavy favorite and bounced back for Game 2.
Yeah, it is, obviously the natural comparisons are going to get made all the time to the 2012 group. And, honestly, we know that 2012 was 15 years or, 13 years ago. But whenever they won on Sunday night, and it was, hey, first finals win for the Thunder in 13 years, it was kind of one of those, like, yeah, it has been that long. Like, it's an obvious stat, but, it kind of reminds you of kind of the journey back to this point. Something that's nice for this group compared to that group is obviously back then, that's when they still did the 2-3-2. So they had to go play 3 in Miami, never got it back to Oklahoma City. They will get it back to Oklahoma City, so you have that at least in your back pocket. You know that there will be another game, at the Paycom Center. But it's obviously some parallels, but also some very big differences at the same time. It's kind of that kind of pick and choose on what you're looking at. But, I think these guys, they're also young, have got a very good kind of perspective on everything, which you kind of really respect and admire.
All right, Game 3, Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday night. My days are so mixed up.
I know. Every time I've referenced the day in this, I've had to, like, think for a second.
I did a pretty good job of keeping track of the days during the Memphis series, but basically since the Denver series and the fact that I've not had a day off in that time, and that's not a complaint by any means, but it just like it scrambles my head in terms of keeping track of like what the actual day of the week is. Like I've known the dates pretty well because I have to like look at when games are. But anyway, Game 3, Wednesday night at Indiana, 7:30 tip. What are you looking for tomorrow night, Josh?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm just, I guess, curious, really above all, if Indiana can get their two guys going. Like I said before, Halliburton and Siakam really have not played particularly well in the first two games. If they don't turn around, I just really don't like Indiana's chances. And that's the top storyline for me, and the top key is if Oklahoma City continues to slow down those guys, in particular Halliburton, obviously, if he has 5 points going to the fourth quarter, I feel pretty good about where Oklahoma City stands to win the game and take control of the series. But I also do firmly expect Indiana to play better. I don't know if the Thunder are going to hold a 10, 15-point lead wire to wire like they have. They could, because the Thunder are just that good. But I think the Pacers are going to play pretty well in these two home games, and they're going to be deciding the fourth quarter, and it'll be up to Oklahoma City to make the plays they need to win these games.
Well, for the Thunder, the expectation is that the big three should be the big three on most nights, right? The expectation is Shea is going to be Shea every night, and that most nights you're going to get a big-time performance from Chet and J-Dub. And then the question becomes, can you get the Lou Dort Game 1 or, Alex Caruso, 20 points in Game 2, Aaron Wiggins, 18 points in Game 2? Can you get those performances from those types of guys on the road? The Indiana role players have been really good in Games 1 and 2. You expect that that's even going to get better in Games 3 and 4. Right. So, I think you should get what you get from the big three, and you're going to have some other players step up on the road if you're going to get at least one of these two. I think the fact that it's I think the fact that it's go ahead.
Sorry, jumping on you. I was going to say the last road game they played, J-Dub, Chet, and Shea obviously were all phenomenal. Game 4.
Phenomenal. That's right. That's right. So I think the fact that there is such a giant spotlight and emphasis on the ghosts of Game 3's past going into this Game 3 probably helps the situation tomorrow. But, I think it probably just comes down to playing with the right level of urgency now that you're on the road and you're adjusting to the first road game of this series, because they've not made that adjustment very well, and at least having a spotlight on them not making that adjustment well should, if nothing else, result in big-time effort, right? Big-time energy, big-time urgency to win every loose ball, to just play with that little bit of extra grit. And if you don't get that, then, I think it's going to be an Indiana win. They're going to be better on their home floor, and you expect that not all of your guys are going to be as good. So that I guess, is what I'm looking for.
I have to assume that the crowd in Indiana will be phenomenal. Obviously, Indiana is like the basketball state, right? And so they've been dying for this. It's a franchise that's been consistently, a winner really for a long time, but have not been in the finals in however long it's been, a while. They're going to be revved up and ready for this. So they're going to feed off that, just like the Thunder feed off the home crowd, and OKC's got to be ready for that.
It's kind of what makes this series cool, right? I mean, there are similarities between the two teams, no doubt, with the rosters, comprised of players that all get along really well, and the team chemistry is great. But the two markets, genuinely just love basketball, and it's not like, hey, what celebrities are going to be at the game? Like, they're all about hoops. And Indiana, like you said, Indiana's going to bring it. And, I respect that. Obviously, everybody here wants the Thunder to win, but I feel like that's the type of market, if the Thunder weren't in the finals, that Thunder fans would be rooting for, because there's so many similarities. So, they're going to have to go survive, I think, a home court advantage. Not to the same level that visitors have to survive at the Paycom Center, but it will be rowdy. And, I think Shea absolutely embraces that. We'll see if everybody else can sort of match that same level of excitement to, quiet the haters, if you will.
Did you see the Benedict Mathurin quote from today where he said Oklahoma City was definitely better than MSG? Yes,
100%.
I like it.
And I think pretty much everybody who's been at the Paycom Center at some point throughout this postseason run has echoed, better than insert name here. So, yeah. But it's going to be, tomorrow night's going to be a fun atmosphere.
It'll be awesome.
And again, we'll just leave you with this stat again. In the NBA Finals, in the history of the NBA Finals, when the series is tied at 1-1, the Game 3 winner goes on to win the series 80% of the time. So that doesn't mean if Indiana wins tomorrow, it's a foregone conclusion, because really the Thunder only need one of the next two. It doesn't matter what order it comes in. I think there's more pressure on Indiana to win Game 3 tomorrow than there is on the Thunder, but the Thunder only need one of these next two. If we're just talking about like the long term, you'd love to get both, but if you get one, you're in a great position to win 2 of 3 on your home floor. So I think there's a lot more pressure on Indiana. But again, just throwing that stat out there, the Game 3 winner in an NBA Finals series tied 1-1 goes on to win the series 80% of the time. That's pretty monumental. All right, we have one more night of sleep before it's game day for Game 3 of the NBA Finals. OKC at Indiana, the first road test in this final series for the Thunder. Along with Josh Callaway, I'm Colby Daniels. We'll have more coverage tomorrow.